Well, okay, there you have it. So, is the Republican pledge irresponsible, as the president says? Or is the GOP really going to put the big freeze on big government to spur jobs and growth? Here now is House Republican whip Eric Cantor from Virginia. Congressman, thanks for coming back on. What do you think of what President Obama said this morning?
Well, Larry, it's pretty clear the president and his economic team still just don't get it. You know, people are out of work. People are tired of Washington continuing to spend money it doesn't have, and they want something different because they've seen now the Keynesian-oriented economic policies of the Obama administration have failed miserably and have left us with trillions of dollars of debt now that we'll have to pay back. So, you know, again, I don't think that it's worth even engaging when the president goes on the attack to blame some prior, Congress or us or what have you, because the buck stops with him, and I think the people understand these policies that the White House has promoted have just been an utter failure.
Mr. Cantor, I'm just interested, not in his tax numbers, because he's been trying to sell the same numbers for a long time, but he says you're only cutting $16 billion out of the budget now. My reading of the pledge was a little more aggressive. Can you fill us in? What kind of spending cuts? Folks are fed up with spending, as you know.
Well, in the Pledge to America, what we try and do is to say we've got to rebalance, if you will, the role of the federal government versus the private sector. Federal government has grown entirely too big, and we advocate some specific spending cuts. If you go about dialing back the discretionary spending item to '08 levels, right there you can save $100 billion a year, and over the 10-year window, a lot more than that. You can also achieve some interest savings once you reduce the amount of expenditures. We're also looking at cutting into seriously the budgets in the White House and Congress. The White House the executive wing of the White House and the West Wing, the salaries there over the last year have gone up just $4 million. That's the kind of thing that the public's upset about, and we're determined to make sure that we put in place these kind of fiscal restraint measures, put in spending caps, make sure that we don't increase the level of spending over and above what everyone else is doing in this economy. You can save at least $300 billion there. So again, I think the president really just wants to rely on some old, tired rhetoric towards Republicans, and my sense is, Larry, the people just don't buy it.
So let's go to this tax gridlock issue, okay? It's driving everybody crazy, including me. And it could really sink the stock market toward the end of the year. Frankly, could sink the economy next year. What is going to happen with this tax gridlock? Is there going to be a vote, and when?
Everything I'm hearing, Larry, there will not be a vote on the tax question this week, and I think it's a dereliction of duty for Nancy Pelosi to adjourn this Congress without addressing the #1 concern on the minds of small businesses and working families, and that is, what's my tax rate going to be? The president keeps talking about tax cuts. But the reality is, come January 1, one or two things is going to happen. Either your tax rates are going to go up or they're going to stay the same. And what Republicans continue to say, along with many Democrats at this point, is let's make sure that tax rates don't go up, especially in a recession, and especially when you're talking about small business tax hikes, when you need them to create the jobs.
So the bottom line is we're not going to know. We're not going to know for quite a while. We're not going to know until after the election, and that may be bedlam in a lame duck Congress. I mean, that's just the problem. Investors are going nuts over this, Eric. They really are.
I mean, absolutely. It's just like Matt Rose, CEO of BNSF, you were just speaking with him, Larry. I think corporate America, small business America, working families America need to see some return to a sense of stability here and stop all the uncertainty. And if we're going to see a return to people getting back to work, we do have to, as Matt just said, focus on the competitiveness and the growth prospects for our country. And the growth prospects can really be aided if Congress would get in the game, stop causing uncertainty, stop raising taxes, and understand that we've got to compete in a growth-oriented way, which means bringing down corporate rates, which is simplifying our tax code and not disadvantaging American-based companies.
All right, so that's very interesting. Now, let me ask you, let's step back for a second. A general question, Congressman Cantor, a general question. The Tea Party has a very free market contract from America. They are trying to revive free market capitalism, which, as you know, is the credo of this program and my own personal credo. Can you tell us, in your judgment, that the Republican Party is morphing itself back to a free market capitalist party?
There's no question, Larry, that we are committed to having learned the lessons from when our party was fired in '06 and again by the people in '08. We're also committed to learning from the lessons being committed by the other side now, which are gross in exaggeration of the spending and debt problems we face in this country. And we have a new crop of leaders across this country wanting to come to Washington to make sure that we're going to be doing the things that people expect us to do, not that which we want to do. And we are adherent to the principles of free markets, of freedom, of liberty, and the fact that America is an exceptional place. We don't want to become like everyone else. We don't want to become like the social welfare states of Europe and others, where growth is anemic and people have to export their children, if you will, when they get old enough to pursue a career, to come somewhere else to pursue those dreams. We want the ability in America to make sure our kids have the prospects of achieving their own dreams here. We've always been the best at innovation, Larry. The only way we do that is reorient back to those free enterprise principles, that common sense conservative agenda that this country so badly needs right now.
All right, let me ask you one more. This is not a curveball. This is a serious question. The Federal Reserve, Mr. Cantor, is fixing to start pumping more cash into the economy, and as sure as we're talking tonight, that is going to deliberately sink the dollar, which was the same mistake we made in the middle 2000s that exploded assets and energy and gold and oil at 150 bucks. Do you or anybody else in the GOP caucus, do you ever think about a stable dollar, maybe even linked to gold, stop the Fed's destruction of our currency?
Well, a lot of us are very concerned about the prospect of a weak dollar. I think most of us came up on the sense that we do need to dedicate ourselves to a strong dollar, because after all, the value of our currency and the attitudes of global investors towards the dollar is a reflection of the level of confidence that people around the globe have in the U.S. government's ability to sustain itself in its fiscal path. And there's no question, coupled with the fiscal policies of this Obama administration and a more active Federal Reserve at this point, raises an awful lot of concerns in many, many minds in Washington.
All right, House Republican Whip Eric Cantor, we really appreciate your time. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks, Larry.